Okay, so for part 2 of our assignment, you will see it's only 9 questions, and we are going through prime factorization and order of operations, expressions, and distributive property. So it's quite a bit, so we're just going to go over it step by step. Okay, so first things first, we're going to start with prime factorization. So prime factorizations mean that we use all prime numbers. So if I said, what's the prime factorization of 4? I'm going to look at what 2 numbers I can multiply to get to 4. So what 2 numbers can I multiply to get to 4? 2 times 2. Now 2 is a prime number. Okay, so I'd write 2, and then I would write how many times do I see the number 2? I see it 1, 2. So the exponent would be 2. Okay, let's try a different one. Let's try 27. What 2 numbers can I multiply to get 27? I can get the number 3 and the number 9. Since the number 3 is prime, I'm going to circle it. Now, the number 9, what 2 numbers can be multiplied to get to 9? 3 times 3. And so I'm going to circle that. I didn't mean to do this, but so we get the number 3, and I write it, and then I write how many times I saw it. 1, 2, 3 times. Okay, let's try one more. Let's say we did the number 12. Okay, what 2 numbers can I multiply to get to 12? Now there's a couple different answers here, so you can go either way, but ultimately you will end up with the exact same prime factorization. So if we think of the 2 numbers we can multiply to get to 12, some of you may have said 3 times 4. Okay, 3 is prime, so we circle it. 4 we know is 2 times 2. So when we did the prime factorization here, we say 2. We start with our lowest number. We see the number 2 times, and we put our times dot, and we see the number 3 1 time. You don't have to put a 1 as the exponent, but you can. It's written the exact same way. So let's say you were one of the ones that said, oh, what about 2 times 6? 2 is prime, and 6 breaks down to 2 and 3. So it's the exact same prime factorization, regardless of what factors you use. Okay? All right, let's talk about the exponents. Let's say we have 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So what's the importance here? Well, if you don't want to write all these numbers out, we can use exponents. So the way that works is you write the number that you see. So what number do we see? We see the number 3, right? If you've seen it and you can underline it, then that's how many times. And that makes that big number, okay? The number of times you see it, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 is the exponent. So 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 means 3 to the 4th power. So when I see this, right, I can write it out, and I know that 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 3 is 9. So 9 times 9 is 81. So 3 to the 4th power is 81. What if it said to write out 6 to the 4th power? Well, I take the exponent, and I see how many times is that? That's a 4, so I have 4 blanks. And the big number, right, the base, that's what that's called, the base, we write it in the blanks. Base goes in blanks, okay? So you get 6 times 6 times 6 times 6. Okay? That's how we work with exponents. Let's look at 2 different words here. So we have the word deposit and the word withdrawal. So you'll hear these words when we're talking about money. So when we say deposit, we're saying that we're putting money into the bank. We're adding it to our money that we already have. If we withdraw our money, it means that we spend our money. And if we spend money, that takes money away from us, so it's subtracting. Okay, those are 2 important words. See, the next part is what I like to call fun dip, or fractions, decimals, and percents. So let's say we have the fraction 1/4, and I want to turn that into a decimal and a percent. So how do I turn a fraction into a decimal? Well, remember Tybo from yesterday? Top in, bottom out. So the 1 goes in the house, and I divide by 4. 4 cannot go into 1. So I put an X, and I have to add a decimal and a 0. Okay, 4 can now go into 10. Remember, if you add your decimal, you got to add it up here. 4 can go into 10 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. I have to add another 0, and I bring it down. Sorry. 4 can go into 20 5 times. So 1/4 equals decimal 25. Now, if I wanted to go to a percent, I can use what's called the Dr. Pepper strategy, right? Dr. Pepper, decimal percent. So if I want to go from a decimal to a percent, I can move my decimal 2 places to the right. If I'm going from a percent to a decimal, I move it 2 places to the left. So let's look at decimal 25. I'm going from a decimal to a percent, so I move the decimal to the right 2 places. 1, 2. So that would give me 25%. Now, in the same regard, if we had 25%, we know the decimal's here at the end, and we move it 2 places to the left, and that gives us decimal 25. Okay? Something called distributive property. You've heard about it. You've learned about it probably when we came back from Christmas. So distributive property means that it's something outside of the parentheses. See how there's not a sign here? That means I'm multiplying. So I'm multiplying everything in the parentheses by the number outside the parentheses. So let's look at this. If I have the number 2 outside the parentheses, this means I have to multiply 2 times 3 and 2 times 4. Okay? So when we say 2 times 3 and 2 times 4, we always keep the sign that's in the middle of the parentheses. So here we have a plus sign, so we're going to put that plus sign. So now we can reduce this. What is 2 times 3? 6. And 2 times 4 is 8. So 2, and then in parentheses, 3 plus 4, also can equal 6 plus 8. Okay, it's 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. All right. And last but not least, order of operations. It's something that you learned in 5th grade, but we'll talk about it every year. And so what order of operations is how you solve equations when there's multiple steps. So we start with PEMDAS. P is parentheses. So you would solve anything in parentheses first. E stands for exponents. So after parentheses, then you can go to exponents. Now, if you notice, I have multiplying and dividing, adding and subtracting, and these are grouped together. The reason is because if you have multiplication and division left, you work left to right. Adding and subtracting, you work left to right. So let's look at this. Let's say we have 1 plus 2, we'll say that's in parentheses, times 3. Let's say divided by 3. Let's say divided by 3 times 4. All right, so I'm going to start with parentheses. So I say 1 plus 2 is 3, and I rewrite the whole equation because I don't want to mess up. So I just copy everything else that I didn't use. Now, I've done P. There's no exponents, so I cross out E. Now I'm to multiplication and division. So if you look at this, a lot of you would say, oh, I have to do 3 times 4. You can't. You have to go from left to right. So what do I do first instead of multiplication? Division. 3 divided by 3 is 1 times 4. And 1 times 4 we know is 4. Okay? I know that was quite a bit, but that will help you answer the 9 questions for today.